All
Yeah,
right.
bring on
Well,
the Carnival of Horrors.
yeah. So, welcome to the Right Can't Read. I'm Rachel. Pronouns are she, her. Would you guys like to introduce yourselves?
I am hangover incarnate Aaron Simon.
Very
My
nice.
pronouns are whiskey and coffee.
Oh, my name is Robert Sharkey, and I am always pleased for a podcast where Aaron's hungover. Aaron is at his most artistically supple when hungover.
Oh God.
So,
As all people who paid for a master's degree in writing should be.
So the self-hatred really comes through, and when someone's like, "Oh, we have several bottles of whiskey for St. Patrick's Day over here," and I'm like, "Hey!" And,
yeah, I guess we should have seen that one coming recording after St. Patrick's Day.
Were you honoring the ancestral day of my people, Aaron?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, lots of flocking Molly.
Nice.
It was good.
Oh, you said lots of fucking Molly. I'm like, wow, okay. I thought you were just drinking. I didn't know you did other things.
Anyone named Molly, Aaron will have sex with on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah,
As a form of reparations to the Irish people.
exactly, for all of the crimes that I have done to the Irish.
All right. Well, today's podcast is not about Irish culture and drinking, but instead we are going to be talking about how the right, co-ops art and culture. But today we're talking in particular about how they're full on banning this one intersection of art and culture. We are going to be talking about drag.
Drag racing?
Not drag racing.
No.
So okay, yeah, well, drag queens, drag shows, drag story hours, everything about it. So arguably one of the most art and culturally things that the right has tried to destroy lately, besides perhaps, book banning in Florida and all the other awful things that they're doing. So for you guys, what has been your experience or exposure to drag? Have you guys like secretly binged RuPaul's Drag Race or been to drag shows or anything like that?
This is your revenge topic, Rachel. Much like Aaron dunks on all of us on like mid-90s video games, Rachel's just gonna come the Michael Jordan dunk on Aaron for a full episode. Because he has to go, I have no idea what this is.
No, I was at a drag thing last weekend for it was like a Purim party, and there was a group of folks in Redacted who normally I don't really like, because they're like, let's go dance under the moon and reinvent let's make Judaism with crystals and vibes. But anyway, they put on a cool event. It was like a drag show that was Purim themed. And
was this the event you described to me as quote unquote loud?
It was very loud, and I will be completely clear, I was having a miserable time during it because there were too many people. And there was one individual who was like, their costume was it was like the marionette on playing card, like the Harlequin on playing cards. And this person was like kind of going around a lot of people during the party, and it creeped me the fuck out. So that was one bit that I did not like. But yeah, it was just very loud. There were a lot of people. A friend of mine looked over and said, "You look dead inside." But it was not because of the drag. It was because there are too many goddamn people, which is my review of Earth.
Yeah.
Not bad because of drag, bad because of the people.
Yeah.
Oh, Nice.
But yeah, I mean, that's surprising no one. I don't really go to a lot of drag events.
What about you, Shark? Any?
Yeah, drag's great. It's a part of the queer community. I've been to a few, and also weirdly, as a classics major, you talk a lot about drag because it's like a thing that's existed for a long fucking time.
Yeah.
Despite what some people
Yeah.
say, it was a religious obligation in ancient Greece sometimes for children, male children, to dress up as women. Obviously drag was a big thing in like Victorian performances, and like weirdly I have a lot of academic time spent discussing drag.
Nice. Okay, cool. So
yeah, I mean,
we're gonna be
I-
getting into the history like that a little bit. So
Yeah.
cool.
They're like Monty Python. That was like a big part of their shtick.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I went to my first drag show last Sunday. And I guess, well, before that, for this episode, I watched a couple seasons of RuPaul's Drag Race, and it brought me immediately back to like 2004, reminding me of America's Next Top Model. Did either of you guys watch that? Aaron, I'm assuming you did not.
I absolutely no.
I have
Nope.
not seen Top Model.
Oh my God. Okay.
I don't watch RuPaul stuff, but like there was an episode with, I guess RuPaul had a thing about just hanging out with friends in a car. It was like Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, but with RuPaul and no coffee. I don't know if this rings a bell. Anyway, there was an episode with RuPaul and Henry Rollins, and that was really fun. Because Henry,
I don't know who Henry Rollins is.
He's the lead singer for a lot of things. Got to start with Black Flag and then a bunch of other stuff. He's like a very just jacked, angry man, but like he's kind. He's just like an angry guy. Well, he's not kind. He's a dick, but he has good ideas. And it was funny because he is a very he doesn't say the words, but he talks about himself as like a broken man. And RuPaul was trying to convince Henry Rollins to open up and start pursuing love again. And
oh my gosh,
Henry Rollins was like
feelings.
Yeah, so I identify with Henry Rollins a lot.
My sister once got makeup tips from RuPaul.
That's cool. Oh, how did that happen?
My family lived in Key West, and it was before RuPaul was super famous. And my sister was just in a bathroom in a friend of theirs restaurant in Key West, and RuPaul was doing their makeup. And
hell yeah,
my sister was like, "Yeah, how do you do that?"
That's cool.
So honestly, she, despite being a conservative from Utah, has the most authentic drag experience of all of us.
Yeah.
I know, like so many drag queens. I'm like, how like they have to spend hours like learning and just practicing, obviously. But yeah, always looks amazing. So yeah, I went to my first drag show last week. It was at Darcel 15 Showplace, which is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's located in Redacted. It's owned and operated by Walter Cole, but he is better known by his drag name, Darcel. And Darcel is famous in her own right by being the oldest working drag queen performer. She's 92.
Holy shit.
Yep, the oldest in the world, according to Guinness. And outside the venue, there's a little plaque that has like the National Register information, and then inside they have like the Guinness Book of World Records.
You got to stop saying that name.
Guinness.
Please.
Aaron's
maybe
just
I'll sprinkle it in
carbonated black liquid like the fucking antagonist of some Japanese horror film.
So I found out that Darcel 15 almost closed down during COVID. And then because of the houseless people situation in downtown, they were driving away crowds. People didn't want to go downtown and see shows. But the venue and the show like survived, and they made it through the pandemic, and they started their new show, Drag Brunch, instead of just doing shows on like Saturday nights. And it's their best-selling show now. So if you are not able to go see a evening show, brunches are the way to go.
Those are my two favorite genres of people from Redacted. On the one hand, there are the people who won't go downtown because there are houseless people there, and that's the overwhelming percentage of the population. And then the other kind of Portlander like specifically knows the names of most of the houseless people they bump into.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
That's that. Every
Which is why having a bunch of houseless people outside of any venue you really like is great, because you only run into the better kind of redacted liver.
yeah. That
Yeah,
is true. I not gonna do that segue. Go ahead.
Okay. So
Not segue.
it's a smaller venue than I was expecting. It's pretty intimate. And the walls are lined with like hundreds and hundreds of pictures of different drag queens from like every era, community members who support them, like different events that they've held. So it's like really like cool, historic inside. The show was opened by Poison Waters, and then it was a lineup of like 8 queens lip syncing songs like Barbie Girl, Hold On by Wilson Phillips, Dream On by Aerosmith, and of course My Heart Will Go On by the Queen, Celine. Yeah, so I don't really ever leave my house, especially to go to events like that. But I'm really happy that I did. The energy of the queens and like the crowd made the experience so much better. It's just so positive, you know, like there are lots of gaybies and maybes and girls, and everyone in between it is just like, oh, you look confused, Aaron.
Yeah, there were 2 uses of the word girls, but with different inflections.
Uh-huh. You know, like
can you help?
You've never heard like a drag queen go, girl?
Oh, okay.
I didn't do it.
No, okay. I wasn't. All right. I'm at my peak.
Hungover Aaron is at his peak.
Well-oiled machine in my brain.
So anyway, yeah, it's just like they're up there living their most like authentic, true lives, doing something that brings them joy, and it's just crazy to me that people can hate on that. I understand that not everyone likes drag, regardless if they're LGBTQ or not. You know, not everyone even likes live performances, but there's a difference between letting people do what they want and choosing just to ignore them or not support them versus plotting to threaten and attack performers or passing restrictive legislation because you think it shouldn't be happening. Mm-hmm. So this is my PSA. If you haven't ever been to a drag show, please go support your local queens. You will not regret it.
And that logic only extends as far as rap rock. You can ban rap rock from any venue in the world and legally persecute anyone who likes it.
That depends. You have to be specific about it, though, because some people would refer to Rage Against the Machine as rap rock, in that De La Roca doesn't sing. And
well, they would be wrong, and we can persecute them too.
All right, so, cool. Yeah.
The state agency of rap rock.
the Bureau of Rap Rock Elimination.
Yeah.
The Bureau of Rap Rock Affairs.
Just trying to think of the acronym for that. My brain's working too slow.
Brah.
So we're gonna keep this episode a little lighter than perhaps our first person shooter episode. So we'll cover
I got weirdly dark.
Yeah, that was a little bit dark day. Yeah, so we're just going to talk about how drag got its start, and then how the escalation and war against drag really kicked into gear and where we are today, and then end on a more positive note about how drag, to quote Lil Miss Hot Mess, is about entertainment and having a good time, but also about challenging the status quo. So 2 notes before we get started. I might be using the terms gay, queer, LGBTQ interchangeably today. Trust me, I do know the differences. I am a cis lesbian, but for our purposes today, I wanted to keep it more inclusive to the alphabet mafia, since sexual orientation and gender identity were less defined back then.
The alphabet mafia is unapologetically like the best thing the right has ever come up with. It's like the greatest fucking, yeah. It started out as like a right-wing thing about like cancel culture and how the queers would come for you, and it's objectively the coolest way to refer to queer people.
I agree. It's like so inclusive. It can be any word that you want falls into that category, you know? Yeah. So I support that.
And
I'm glad that
like,
we took that back.
I like that you are putting a disclaimer in there for our 12 listeners, many of whom have access to my phone number.
I thought it was important.
Yeah, no, it is. I appreciate it. I'm sure in the future, when we have millions of listeners, they will appreciate that too.
And then the second point I wanted to clarify is we have this narrow scope for today, but I wanted to address that there's a lot going on right now regarding the legislative onslaught against the trans community. State legislatures are trying to write trans people out of existence, and as of this writing, I wrote this on March 13th. There were over 22 anti-trans bills that would be heard over the next couple of days in at least 9 states, and there has since been more. So I don't know what that number is today, but it's just disgusting.
And Shark, weren't you saying the other day that like well, there's your problem, I had to cancel shows? And
one of our favorite podcasts had to cancel a show in Tennessee because like
That's right.
one of them's a trans woman, and they would obviously dress like they want to, and they would be thrown in jail for it or something.
So for example, in Tennessee there was a proposed bill brought to the Senate that calls DEI an ideology and bans healthcare providers and schools from enacting DEI policies. And yep, we already got a face rub. Nice.
Well, it's just it pisses me off because like I have a friend who like moved back, who's I think now listening to the podcast. So hello, moved back to the South, and I was kind of got on his case about it, and I was like, why? And he said, it's more free there. I was like, what are you talking about, man? It's for you. You're a white dude who's vaguely Christian, I think. But this is just.
If I lived in the South, I would definitely want to move, but I do really have to respect the LGBTQ people who do live there and stay there and try and make it a better place. Like I know there's a legislature in Tennessee who is, I think she's lesbian, and her mom was like, don't like leave or whatever, but she decided to stay and like fight for the rights of those people in that state. So you have to commend those people that decide to stay and not move.
Best of luck.
Yeah. So another example is in Florida, an expansion to the Don't Say Gay law would outright ban being trans in school for teachers. Teachers would not be allowed to go by different titles or pronouns in their biological sex. They've also proposed a bill which could result in loss of custody for parents affirming trans kids, and that would ban gender affirming care for trans youth. And lastly, not lastly, but my last point here is in Montana, a bill was proposed that would mean intersex people have no legal status, meaning that they could have no legal recourse as a victim of sexual abuse. They couldn't write a will, get a driver's license, or marry. And it would remove protections against discrimination based on gender, meaning trans people lose rights and intersex people are not people.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Jesus, like it's just fucking like whatever. If you want to be some weird fucking asshole about like transness, I at least understand like your underlying cultural fuck upness. But like intersex people are just like
they're born that way.
Yeah, and like complete and utter like biological like terms.
They're saying this for years. This is how it starts. It's just going to keep going down this horrible fucking route. But oh no, Aaron's being paranoid.
No, in Montana, in order to like not pass it, but in order to propose that bill, in that same bill, they proposed language to change the definitions of like biological sex or like male. They were like specifically changing those things so that they could make intersex people no longer legal or no longer give them legal status.
Insane.
Yeah.
They trans people need specialized healthcare. Intersex people also need specialized health. Like, that's fucking nuts.
It is. It's disgusting.
Fucking
When
Christ.
I came into this episode being like, cool history of drag, like kind of lighthearted. And then as soon as I got past that, I was like, oh, this is not a light episode.
It's also
No.
one of my favorite things. I'm looking at the Montana bill right now, and it says chromosomal, molecular, karyotypic DNA, or other genetic testing that identifies the sex of the individual is what you have to use to change the sex on your license plate, which is hilarious because people who pass as whatever gender they want to be is a way higher percentage than people who chromosomally are definitively one gender. Like people who are chromosomally intersex is a larger percentage of the population than redheads, according to a recent
Wow.
British metadata analysis.
Huh.
Like it's chromosomes are very non-clean cut, and I think it's some really high percentage, but like in the full points would have trouble proving their chromosomal identity for the sake of this law, which is wild that they're going to make people do that.
You just
Yeah.
gotta.
Because like there's a very feasible argument that like one of the three of us, but certainly someone we know, would have trouble proving their like biological gender, quote unquote, in Montana.
Well, how do we does that mean that you have to go get tests done in order to
Yeah.
how do you prove your biologicals, like your chromosomal?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And what if the results are inconclusive despite your like phenotype, which
You are
is
not
a
a
real
person.
thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they give you a driver's license with just like a question mark next to the gender thing? Or...
You are sent to a special facility in which we will ensure that you have the correct documents.
Okay, that just reminded me. I have to side note. I just learned about the term what is it, Asperger's, where that came from.
Uh,
All right, you're
The
gonna have
Nazi
to remind me. I know I've read something about this before, but I can't.
He was a Nazi doctor in I think he was in concentration camps, and he was responsible for if there were a group of people and some were autistic, the ones that were more quote unquote high functioning, I think were like those were the people who would ultimately be called people with Asperger's, and then everyone else he sent to the gas chambers or they got killed. So actually Asperger's is just autism. It's the same thing. So anyway, I didn't know that was the history of that. And
and
anyway,
he got a huge leg up in his career because like a lot of the great doctors where he lived were Jewish, as any successful fucking person was during the Reich. He just like fucking took over Jewish people's lives. Yeah, they're not great.
Okay, so anyway, so there are
and then
so many
he became
more.
like not Nazi enough because he was Catholic in the end, which is a really
Oh,
funny
wow.
story that eats its own tail. Yeah,
It's a plot twist. But yeah, so anyway, there are so many more examples that I didn't include in that little list. But it's all disgusting and reprehensible that these kinds of proposals are even making it to the floor. If you want to stay up to date on the anti-trans bills, Erin Reed is a great independent journalist and activist covering anti-trans legislation. She has all the latest updates, so you should go follow her on Twitter. She's at Erin in the Morn. So yeah, okay. Our scope is narrow today. We could obviously talk about how drag is closely intertwined with the trans community, how the ban on drag targets the transgender community and the LGBT community, and how the right wing are following the same playbook that the Nazis used to start the systematic murder of everyone who they considered subhuman, inferior, and the mortal enemy. But we don't have time for that today. So if you aren't aware of how drag might intersect with those other topics, please go to the Google, or if you're Gen Z, go to the good side of TikTok and educate yourself.
or if you're a paranoid like me, go to DuckDuckGo.
Yeah,
do you actually use DuckDuckGo?
Yeah, it's fine.
Is it okay?
It just doesn't. It doesn't feed the Google machine.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. I would like to do that.
Firefox and DuckDuckGo. It's.
I hate Firefox. I can't.
I'll yell at you later.
All right. So part one is the herstory of drag. Thank you. I found a write-up from them.us and Trixie Mattel, the winner of RuPaul's Drag Race season 3.
Oh, fuck
who
yeah,
gave
Trixie
a really
Mattel rocks.
Yeah. So they gave a summary of the history of drag, and I'm just going to kind of paraphrase that now. So the word drag has existed since 1388, but probably more because I didn't go back to the Greeks. But according to the Oxford English Dictionary, it wasn't until, it existed since 1388 according to the Oxford English Dictionary, excuse me. But it wasn't until the 19th century that it was used in connection with performing in clothes or a persona that was different than your own gender. There was a newspaper in the UK in 1870 that printed the word in reference to a party invitation, "We shall come in drag," which meant men wearing women's costumes. It's likely that the definition of drag, meaning men wearing women's costumes, came from the theater. The men would wear petticoats that dragged on the floor, so they referred to dressing up as women as putting on their drags. By the 1920s, the term drag was being used by gay people, and the theory is that it entered the community from Polari. Do you guys know what that is? It's the secret language that originated in Britain that people used to be able to identify and communicate with other LGBTQ people.
Wait, what? How do I not know about this?
Yeah, it's pretty dope. So
there was like a thieves' cant for people who were like, "Hey, we should have sex." That's awesome.
Yeah, if you go and look up Polari, there are like example sentences that I can't understand, but it's a whole language.
Cockney rhyming scheme or whatever it is like it's still English, but is Polari like a using English words or okay? Cool.
Yeah, so I have some examples.
So they weren't making Klingon.
No.
Okay.
No. Some examples are like to zhuzh up. Give a quick zhuzh. To style or do up. Meat and to veg. Do you know what that means?
Do what?
Meat and to veg.
I'm willing to. Well.
Yes, you are correct.
Okay. All right.
Penis and balls. Drag is clothing. Camp was like funny, flamboyant. Dish meant like, oh, he's a dish, like an attractive man. Trade.
So this is where all of this comes from.
One of my favorite parts about history is that people have always fundamentally done the same shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and butch and femme also comes from this.
Really?
So yeah, pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah. And it was a way to like stay safe also,
So all I'm saying is it would have been cooler if it was like the start a car language from the most recent Dune movie, but this is cool too. Yeah, that's it.
It would never have been cooler if it was something from Dune, Aaron. I keep trying to explain this to you.
House Canis is very upset right now, Shark.
On the Wikipedia page for Polari, it says it was used by actors, circus and fairground showmen, merchant navy sailors, criminals, sex workers, showmen, and the gay subculture.
Wow. That's a lot more people than I really expected.
All of whom I'd assume, because, like circus performers, professional wrestlers, sailors, criminals are all
gay.
In that time, actually though, you couldn't be a sailor without being gay functionally.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
It's wild.
This is a neat little dip into history.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The concept of a drag king also started to emerge at the turn of the century, where women performed as male impersonators. By 1927, drag was very much linked with the LGBTQ community and was defined as an outfit of female dress worn by a homosexual, or as an actual event, a social gathering of homosexuals at which some are in female dress. The danger and segregation of bars in the 1920s paved the way for drag balls. The first drag ball goes as far back as 1867, though, when both males and females at the Hamilton Lodge in Harlem dressed up and competed for awards for the best gown or feminine figure. From there, in the 1950s, drag queens started performing in bars and spaces that were specifically for gay people, like the Black Cat in San Francisco or Redacted's very own Darcel 15, which served as a safe space for Redacted's then underground gay and lesbian community. yeah, so drag started to solidify itself as a gay art form, not just straight men impersonating women for the sake of comedy. It started to find its way into pop culture, like with John Walter's 1972 film Pink Flamingos. Have you seen that one, Aaron?
We talked about it before. Like, I deeply respect John Waters, but
I mean, I don't really know who he is. So.
His movies are a chore to get through.
Okay.
John Waters he creates things that are intentionally in horrific taste.
Yeah.
Huh.
Like,
Yeah.
not
Okay.
offensive, like there's not one of those comedians who's like, I'm out here to fucking, like, no, he's like actually trying to create things that are unpleasant to like be a part of.
They are very unpleasant. Like, yeah. Is Pink Flamingos the one that starts off with the older woman in the crib screaming about eggs?
I haven't seen it in so long.
I think it's
I don't know.
So I watched Female Trouble a while ago, which was I like that one. That one. But one morning I was trying to think of something to watch on the Criterion channel, and I was like, oh, I'll watch Pink Flamingos, and it started. I think that's the one, but it started whichever movie I was watching started off with an older woman in a crib shouting about eggs, and I was like, I can't do this. And I made it like 5 minutes and then turned it off. I was like, respect John Waters a lot. He is generally always correct in all of his opinions, but fuck.
Well, I don't really have any opinion on him, so I will believe you. Yeah, so films like the Pink Flamingos, the 1991 documentary Paris is Burning. I didn't see that one, just disclaimer. The 1989 album Waltz Darling, which contained the first song about voguing. You guys know what voguing is, right? Like, no?
Oh, is that what that is? Oh.
Yeah, well, yeah, really badly, but yeah.
No, I didn't know what the name was. Yeah.
Oh,
I just knew it from.
And apparently, like,
yeah.
Like people say, or a lot of people think that Madonna is the one that made that popular, but she actually just like stole it from people that she saw doing it at a drag ball. And so there's a lot of backlash in the community about that.
If you look for 10 seconds at anything that became popular in pop music,
it comes from a marginalized community.
It was not, in fact, a really well-paid white person that made it famous.
Yeah.
Yep. And then also the 1989 Love Ball, which was an AIDS benefit ball that brought together top ballroom personalities, celebrities, and supermodels that ended up raising over $400,000 in 1989 money, and was the first time voguing and ballroom subculture had been covered by the mainstream press. Are either of you familiar with the film This Is the Army?
I've heard of it.
It was released in 1943 and directed by Michael Curtis. So I'm just going to give you a little blurb from Wikipedia about like this movie. It's like the synopsis. Is that what the right word is?
Yeah.
Okay. As the United States enters World War I in 1917, newly married actor Jerry Jones puts on an all-infantry musical to raise his fellow soldiers' morale. At the dawn of World War II, as his own son, Johnny, ponders whether to marry his sweetheart, Eileen, Jerry and his old army buddies, including Eileen's father, decide to put on a new show for the boys marching off to battle just as they did years ago. So basically, World War I and World War II, the U.S. put... Oh, sorry, what were you going to say, Aaron?
No, you finish and then I got...
Okay, well, so... Like in real life, in World War I and World War II, the U.S. put on musical reviews to raise money for the U.S. Army. One of them exists on film because it was turned into this movie, This Is the Army, and 100% of the profits went directly to the U.S. Army. This movie has a cast of 300 active duty World War II soldiers, and they all went back to the front lines after their performance. So in these shows and in this movie, they put on, some of the men were dressed as women. In the movie, This Is the Army, they were dressed as women in drag and makeup. Essentially, yes, the soldiers in the army were dressed and performed in drag. They were all there were all the components of a drag show, like celebrity impressions, comedy bits. It showed the army performing in full drag, not only for adults in the public, but for children, as well as the president of the United States.
Rumors.
Yeah, so the director's name rang a bell, and that's because he's the guy who directed Casablanca, White Christmas.
Really?
Wow. Okay.
Like a bunch of Errol Flynn movies.
Huh.
I think it looks like he was like originally a Hungarian director. It looks like he moved to the US, started working in the US at least in the interwar period. But cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is about as American as it gets, like you cannot deny that this is not anything other than a patriotic form of artistic expression, trying to raise money for the army, like whatever. Do you want to guess who the leading man, Johnny Jones, is in this movie?
No,
Just
it's gotta
take a
be some
guess.
bullshit American icon like Cary
Yes, it
Grant or
is.
something.
Jenny
Not Cary
Stewart.
Grant. Nope. Who's a like how do I put this? Okay. Do you want to guess one more time, or do you just want me to tell you?
So this was, when did this come out?
1943.
43.
No, there's no way it could have been like. Is it a future president? There's no
You're
way it was
shitting
Reagan.
Yes, it was Ronald fucking Reagan.
Holy shit.
You can go on YouTube and find these clips right now.
Oh,
I don't think,
my God.
I don't know if he was ever in drag, like in costume singing, because he was kind of like the one putting on the show and was like always backstage and stuff. But there are clips online. You can go watch this movie.
That's
I wonder
insane.
if this is on the Criterion channel. Let me look. Look, it's a great fucking channel.
Every time you say that, it upsets me.
It's so good. They've got a great thing right now that's like a bunch of older movies with Michelle Yeoh. And it's like 8 of them, and the collection is Michelle Yeoh Kicks Ass.
Nice.
That's
Like
nice.
that.
It's a great thing. It's a good channel. It's the only streaming service that doesn't suck. This has been my plug.
Yeah, we're sponsored by the Criterion Collection.
Yeah, we are. That's all right. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's on it.
Okay.
That's fine.
Yeah. So just to make it crystal clear for everyone, this is drag, funded by the U.S. Army for the war against Hitler and the Nazis, starring Ronald Reagan. I'd like to tell this to Marco fucking Rubio and all the other people who were outraged over the fact that a drag queen was supposed to do a drag queen story hour to the U.S. base in Germany. Yeah. So back to the history of drag real quick. I'm almost done. As the culture grew in the 90s, there started to become more of a distinction between drag and other identities in the LGBTQ spectrum, particularly the distinction between drag queens being gay and the trans community. The 2000s made way for the definition of drag to broaden from rigidly being about realness and like trying to look as much of a woman as possible to a more expansive art form for gay men, trans folks, queer women, and more. Building off the success of the show, RuPaul's Drag Race, the first RuPaul's Drag Con took place in LA in 2015. It's the largest drag convention in the world and is a place for queers and queens alike to celebrate all things art, culture, and drag. So that's what I have for history of part 1.
Cool.
And yeah, what?
There's something I love to tack on to the end of like any discussion about historical queerness, which is that like there's been what can only amount to like a historical genocide about things like drag and queerness. Because like historians work really hard to pretend that like things in history that were queer,
like
weren't.
straight washing.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's like, if you read any like historical account, there's pretty much at any time, at any place in history, someone says, and there was this one woman who dressed up like a man. And And then you're like, oh wow, she was just trying to like join the army or something. And they're like, yeah, she joined the army and she fought for 6 years, and everyone found out she was a woman, and she kept dressing like a man, and her name was Rufus forever. And it's like, no, that's
I love the stories of women who are like, and they were best friends. They lived together for 30 years.
yeah. They slept in the same bed because one of them got terrible nightmares.
Exactly. Like, I think there's even like one or two former, or not, well, yes, former, they're dead, but like first ladies who were either queer or lesbian or so.
Approximately
Yeah,
1 in
love
10 people is gay in a highly repressive Christian society, willing to out themselves as gay in a highly repressive Christian society. So, like, there have been 40 something presidents.
Yeah. There was a great bit on a podcast I listened to where they were talking about they went on a segue about Bert and Ernie.
Oh yeah.
Like how much like they weren't saying it was like a weird relationship because they're like two guys who live together. It was just weird because they're Bert and Ernie.
Yeah.
And then so then they started talking about this thing of, oh yeah, they're two guys who just lived together all the time and they were the best of friends. And one of them was like, yeah, it's like my uncle and his best friend for life who he brought to Seder every year, and they lived together and often slept in the same room, but they were just best friends, right?
Yeah, the closest friends you can imagine.
Yeah.
My grandma, when she divorced my granddad, moved to rural Oregon, to Ashland, with her friend Louise. And then they opened up a bed and breakfast and started breeding dogs in Ashland.
Oh my God.
The worst cover for being a lesbian in the world. Like, we all know, you started breeding dogs in a bed and breakfast in Ashland, Oregon. That's every queer person's fantasy I've ever heard.
It is. Oh my God. Man, that would be my dream, but not that particular location.
Yeah.
Ashland's a weird place.
Yeah, it is.
Weird place. Anyway.
Yeah. So now we are going to talk about where things kind of stand today and all the shit that's happening, and also shit on Republicans who hate drag but have been found out as having dressed or performed in skirts, dresses, and wigs. We're looking at you again, George Santos.
We just refer to them all as collectively Ronald Reagan.
It will now be known as Reaganing.
So, according to GLAAD, the world's biggest LGBTQ media advocacy organization, there were 141 protests, threats, and attacks on drag events nationwide last year. Their analysis shows increasingly violent rhetoric and incidents as the year progressed, including armed white supremacists demonstrating in Texas and the firebombing of the Tulsa donut shop that had hosted a drag event in October. Equality Texas documented additional targeted events throughout the year, including an armed demonstration and confrontation in San Antonio. Not surprisingly, Texas had the highest number of drag events targeted by protests and threats in 2022, which came out, there were 20, followed by North Carolina, which had 10, Illinois, which had 8, Tennessee at 6, and California also at 6.
Nice.
A number of incidents involved violence or weapons, and extremist groups like the Proud Boys, Patriot Front, and local white supremacist chapters were involved in several incidents. I'm just going to read a few of the different incidents now. So a bomb threat was emailed to a local news station in South Carolina, claiming several bombs were planted at a restaurant hosting drag brunch and threatening to kill performers and attendees. About 50 members of the Proud Boys extremist group, armed with long guns and in helmets, full face masks, and flak jackets, protested Drag Story Hour at a church in Ohio, which surprising that it was held at a church, but cool. But
yeah, it's a cool church.
Some Christians are okay.
Yeah. In Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, in June 2022, police arrested 31 Patriot Front members who had traveled from 10 different states armed with riot gear and smoke grenades to protest a pride event that had been targeted by libs of TikTok.
Wait, was this the
Oh,
one
the
that I
libs of-
remember about the guys and like all crammed in the back of a
Yeah,
U-Haul
I
or
think this
something?
is. I think this is that one.
That was so good.
They almost like suffocated themselves by just getting into a U-Haul.
Watching
Oh my
a bunch
God, I
of
didn't know
dudes
that.
in khakis and polo shirts getting unloaded
Like-
from a U-Haul was awesome.
They're just clowns. They're fucking clowns.
I just don't understand, like, why from 10 different states. Like,
Yeah, what you got there is a fascist problem.
on
knocking
November
on a U-Haul. Yeah, this baby right here can fit so many fascists.
There's a lot of
like-
guys named Kyle.
like, I want to make a U-Haul lesbian joke, but there's no joke to be made there. Yeah, and then lastly, as we know, on November 19th, Colorado Springs, Colorado, at a LGBTQ nightclub called the Club Q, hosted a drag show that night and a brunch the next day for Transgender Day of Remembrance. A shooter opened fire in the club, killing 5 people and injuring 18 others. Along with these increased violent attacks and threats, extremist politicians have introduced legislative proposals, some of which have now passed, that aim to restrict or ban public drag performances such as those that take place at pride festivals, or ban minors from observing drag performers, including library events such as Drag Story Hour, which I'll cover in a minute.
Yeah, and just like if you are a part of these communities and plan on regularly attending like drag shows and stuff, I mean, firstly, there are going to be people who will need to do violence and self-defense of these communities. If you are someone who can suffer that on your conscience, get good at self-defense, however that is. But if you're not, bleeding out is the one of the high preventable causes of death. And in an accident, it's the number one preventable cause of death. You can learn to stop someone from bleeding out and then carry that with you to a queer event you go to. Do that. You could save multiple lives.
Wow.
Just
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's a good
Thank you.
idea to keep an IFAC, individual
Always.
first aid kit, in your vehicle.
I keep a full stop the bleed gunshot kit on me whenever I go to a queer event, just in case.
That's a really good idea.
Yep.
One of the worst examples of this new legislative action is from Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee.
Rat fuck motherfucker.
Yeah.
I swear to God. I was talking, my mom is finally getting out of that state, and she was like, it's fine. There's a lot of nice people here. I'm like, that is outweighed by people like Bill Lee. You know it is.
He looks exactly like I thought he looked.
Yeah. Do not dare to give me your optimism or your hope.
He signed a new law, the first in the country, that prohibited adult cabaret, which now means adult-oriented performances that are harmful to minors, and also includes male or female impersonators, from taking place on public property or in a location where the adult cabaret performance could be viewed by a person who is not an adult. So it doesn't outright ban drag performances, but it will certainly force them underground. And then the most disgusting part is, well, I mean, obviously not the most disgusting part, but it's just so blatantly sinister. This law was supposed to go into effect July 1st, but they moved up the fucking date so that it goes into effect in April, before Pride Month in June. So that's great. And as a double whammy, the same afternoon, he also signed a ban on gender-affirming healthcare for youth in Tennessee. So, yeah.
So fucked. I think, who was it? Missouri, I think. There was some other state that passed another one of these, and one of the state legislators, I think her son, maybe her kid, was trans and committed suicide, and the legislator was Democrat and was trying to appeal to conscience to the ghouls.
They don't have one.
So it every Republican voted for the bill. It passed, and she was sobbing throughout the entire thing, and none of the Republicans could make eye contact with her.
Shocking.
And just like, you fucking cowards.
Yeah.
Pieces of shit.
There was one, I don't remember. It's just, there's just so many bills being proposed and like so many different things happening in so many different states. I don't remember where this is from, but I saw a screenshot of a congressperson saying like, I I don't think that the bill went far enough. Like I am totally in support of it and it didn't go far enough. I'm just like, you can go die, honestly. So I have one more example because it was so recent. On March 11th, Texas proposed a bill that would essentially be a bounty hunter drag ban. It would award $5,000, a $5,000 bounty for hunters if a person performs while exhibiting a gender that is different from gender recorded at birth and violates the community standards of decency.
Fucking God.
Yeah. So it doesn't take a genius to see that this could obviously be used against trans performers. It could ban a trans person singing karaoke. It could also ban events like Pride. It's just so egregious. I can't handle it. And yeah, there have been so many more since March 11th, and that was only what, like exactly a week ago.
It's a great time to talk about the fact that the first like moves of the Holocaust were not against the Jewish community. They were against the queer one, and that's how you get that little inroad. The people who think the queers are gross let you like really broaden your agenda very quickly.
The book burning from the Nazis. What were they burning?
Magnus Hirschfeld's works on gender. Yep.
Yeah. So drag story hours have also bore the brunt of a lot of right-wing and far-right protests and attacks. If you don't know, drag story hour is storytellers using the art of drag to read books to kids in libraries, schools, and bookstores. From the Drag Story Hour website, DSH captures the imagination and play of the gender fluidity of childhood and gives kids glamorous, positive, and unabashedly queer role models. In spaces like this, kids are able to see people who defy rigid gender restrictions and imagine a world where everyone can be their authentic selves. I think that's fucking great. And anyone who disagrees can fuck off. I mean, how can you even, like, how can you?
Yup.
Rachel, I don't think you're allowed to do palate cleansers anymore.
I know. I told you this wasn't going to be a palate
cleanser. I'm not feeling cleansed here, Rachel.
I know. I know. Well, here's a little picture of a pup to make you happy again. Oh, it's blurry. You can't see it.
Zoom doesn't want us to experience happiness.
No joy. I think that more people should have been taught as kids how to embrace and accept new people, how to be an individual, how to learn about new identities, the intersection of those identities, and how to express themselves in a genuine way. I think the world would be a lot better off if we did.
And to the youth, anyone who comes to you and says they want to ban weed, gambling, and sodomy is not someone you ever want to hang out with.
No.
If you're 14, just keep that nugget in your pocket and just know that anyone who's pro gambling, marijuana, and sodomy is the kind of people you want to spend time with. And anyone who isn't, not great.
Yeah, that's great life advice.
Yeah, that's my only nugget of wisdom that I've gained in 2.5 decades.
It's all right. So I've been watching Lovecraft Country, which is a great show, and I'm not surprised that it did not take off because it gets deeply weird in ways that are very Lovecraftian, and I imagine are not the same level of comfort that people are looking for from shows. But it's one of the things, and I don't remember if it's in the book, is Atticus's dad, like the protagonist's dad, is a very closeted black man, and the show does a really good job of humanizing him over the arc of the show, because at the start he just comes across like a raging asshole, and as you learn more about the guy, it becomes clear like he's turned off all of the good things in his life because his dad was trying to beat it out. His dad was trying to beat it out of him, and that has turned him into a broken man. But there's an episode where his secret partner, I guess. I don't is in a drag performance, and it's like the only time his character, Montrose's character, like looks comfortable in the show is when he's in this environment. And it's a great comment about like what this kind of repression does to society and the souls of people who are trying to struggle with this stuff. Because if you have this level of repression and you force people to become something that they're not, it breaks them. And it breaks society. And oh fuck.
Yeah.
And it breaks Aaron.
It breaks Aaron because Aaron has to hold himself back from trying to be utter bleak at work when people are talking about how great everything is because we're working on something that matters, but nothing matters. It's all going to hell.
It's also like just super fucking weird. Like the amount of, this is my classics major thing, but the amount of the Western canon you effectively ban by banning drag performance is just like staggeringly insane for people who claim to be like Western chauvinists.
Yeah. Like, for fuck's sake. Even when I was growing up in Tennessee, like part of the thing about Shakespeare was that they would always say it. All of the female roles were played by men. Yeah, and
you'll effectively ban like Shakespeare, most of the ancient Greek plays, a lot of Roman art and literature. Yeah. Like, it's just like you cannot, on the one hand, love quote unquote Western culture, and on the other hand, ban drag shows. They just don't go together.
No, that's like how are you gonna explain a lot of Sparta?
Yeah.
Or Athens, for that matter. It's just you're gonna turn it over to fucking Frank Miller now? Is that gonna be the history textbook? The goddamn 300?
Absolutely. Just a bunch of oiled dudes who never touch each other.
Never. That's for the decadent Persians. And they're goat people.
They're goat. I forgot they're goat people. God, yeah, it's fucking insane. Like the scope of things you ban when you ban drag is like hard to quantify. And it makes it clear that, like, of course, they're still going to let 12th Night be performed. It's not about banning like different takes on gender or people dressing up as different genders. It's about banning a very certain kind of person who does that, which is gross.
Yeah.
I wish I had something smarter to say at the end. Fuck those people. They're lying. They don't dislike drag performances. They dislike certain ones.
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, we'll get to that in a second. So Drag Story Hour also gives kids a way to see themselves, like their identities or interests, reflected in a safe space where they may have not before. So, for example, when I was in high school, I thought lesbians were only butch, short hair, baggy cargo pants, masculine presenting. Like that was the only flavor of lesbian that there was. Yeah, definitely. So if I would have seen like a wider range of representation, I would have known that lesbians come in all different shapes and sizes, looks, and I would have probably had a much different young adult experience. But instead, I got thrown headfirst into a crash course for lesbian culture through collegiate rugby, which, I don't not recommend, but
that's why we make lesbianism, right? It's collegiate rugby where and softball are like the two places where lesbianism is produced.
Exactly. Yeah.
It all comes flowing from there.
Yeah.
So being non-binary is made in the same place where overalls are made, because you buy one, you buy the other, it seems.
So anyway, there are now...
that explains why there's so many people wearing overalls and redacted. Okay.
It's my favorite thing about going to hang out in non-binary spaces is that there's just the non-binary overall with battle jacket patch combo, the agrarian punk rock farmer aesthetic that's embraced by so much of the community.
It's like those tweets, handshakes, farmers, non-binary people.
Yeah. And the band Crass and a three-way handshake. Fucking good. Yep.
I walked by someone in a crass tee. No, it was cramps. Never mind.
Close.
Wait,
Very
was it
close.
just a Pro Cramps t-shirt?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a shirt. It was a band shirt.
Oh,
Oh,
The
okay.
I
band.
I'm
wanted,
like,
I wanted a
Cramps,
t-shirt that
who's
was like,
pro
like
cramps?
no, not like the ouch, but the band cramps. Yeah. Sorry, I forgot who I was talking to.
A critical point of clarification there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. So remember the drag incident at the U.S. Army base in Germany?
I'm gonna make a shirt
That
that's yay hangovers. Sorry, go ahead.
you're not going to sell any of those irons. Yeah. So the incident at the Army base in Germany was a drag story hour. Oh, I didn't actually put pictures on the drive, so never mind. But if you want to go Google that, take a look. There were queens in all great outfits. Everyone was covered, from their neck down to like below their knees. Like it was just wholesome shit. Oh, okay. Sorry. I have never mind. Okay. So yeah, drag story hours are great. I mean, first of all, their costumes are great. Their wigs are fantastic. Like they can be like either real or like more cartoony. I have this one picture, maybe where it's like it looks like kind of pink balloons, but they're like twisted into like curls.
oh, that's
Anyway,
cool.
they're very just great. So now I have some examples of Republicans who have been caught in drag. I gave each one a score out of 10 for their appearance or outfit, and then their response to having been found out that they did it. Okay, hold on. Let me share my screen so you guys can see these pics. One sec. Oh, host disabled participant screen sharing. Well,
How could you do this? My God.
Here,
if you want to go,
I'll
This
fix
is
it.
tyranny. This is fucking tanking
It's
bullshit.
my Zoom call.
This is why the state must be smashed.
All right. So the first one we got George Santos. As we all know, photos surface of him when he lived in Brazil and he was dressed in drag. His drag persona, Kitara Rivache, I think is how you pronounce it. It's a red feathery dress, jewelry, and bling with a black wig and red lipstick.
It looks
First,
okay.
I mean, yeah, he pulls it off. I mean, he looks like any other drag queen. So,
Yeah.
First on Twitter, he said, the most recent obsession from the media claiming that I'm a drag queen or performed as a drag queen is categorically false. While he started off denying the charges on a technicality that he wasn't a professional, he later admitted that the photos were him, telling reporters, no, I was not a drag queen in Brazil, guys. I was young and I had fun at a festival. Sue me for having a life. I give this a 7 out of 10. Great hair, great outfit. Doing drag in Brazil had to have been an experience. I give it a 7 because of the way he denied it at first, like particularly. And then he was like, okay, you're right. It was me, but I'm not a drag queen. But I'm like, you wanted to be, clearly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'll give you
He's
a 7.
drag-ish.
Yeah.
Oh,
The second is Bill Lee, our governor
hell
of Tennessee.
yeah.
This one right here. Here, let me open this up.
That looks like a Monty Python sketch.
Yeah, it does.
So a picture of him surfaced wearing a dress at a high school football game. He said the comparison between his picture and the drag show bill was ridiculous, and something about conflating that to sexualized entertainment in front of children was a serious subject. I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 10. Some effort with his outfit was there, but he could have done more. But his response to dressing in drag was poor. Room for improvement. Own it, bitch.
My favorite genre of this kind of thing is like every so often I always remember who was the pastor who was like blowing dudes in truck stop bathrooms to like mega church pastor.
There were several.
Fuck.
Oh, I
And
don't
it's
know.
like there was just this mega church pastor who was like very anti-gay, and it was found out that he was like doing lines of coke and having sex with men in bathrooms. And he like vehemently denied it. And it's like, dude, you've done one cool thing in your whole life. Like one thing that's awesome. And you're just gonna like be lame again?
So yeah, like, and Bill Lee is a specific kind of Southern guy too. Like, I went to college in the Southeast, and I was in a frat, every frat in the SEC, and I'm sure every frat across the country has at least one major event where they dress in drag.
Absolutely.
Fuck, I did it. It's fine. It's not gonna murder you. It's not gonna kill anyone. But yeah, you've all done this shit. Like, all of these guys have done this shit. It's just
No, exactly.
And it's like the one cool thing you've done, Billy. Just like be cool for
Yeah.
one goddamn second.
But
So
no, a
this
man who
next
looks
guy,
like that cannot. No, he has crushed all of
Yeah.
happiness and color out of his life in order to be a pinched, slightly jaundiced man.
He's sort of like a sickly beige color.
Yeah.
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 So this next guy, Derek Easterling, he is a Republican mayor of Kennesaw, Georgia. He performed in a drag charity event for Alzheimer's in 2017, where he impersonated Christina Aguilera. He has like a nice kind of bodysuit with some like tights held up by what are they called?
Garters?
Like the garters. Thank you.
Yeah.
So in response to this, he said, like, people, questioning him and the media questioning him, he said, "I try and put the fun in fundraiser." He told the local ABC affiliate, "I have 250,000 reasons why I did it," referring to the amount of money that he raised. He also said he would do almost anything if it would help raise money for a good cause. So I give this a 10 out of 10. He totally killed the outfit. He obviously looked like he had fun and, had a good time entertaining people, showed off some leg, owned it. I couldn't find evidence of him supporting or opposing the drag bans. So I think that's a positive because, well, okay, obviously he could come out and like actively support drag, but the fact that he's not opposing it, I'll take it.
The bar is low.
The bar is so low. The next guy, Nate Schatzline.
Those look like
Texas state representative. Yeah.
Yeah, those look like images from a college movie, like student film about a
poorly
slasher in a
made student
park.
film.
Yeah,
it really does.
Yep. So yeah, for our listeners, he is like wearing kind of like a short, like thigh-high dress with a red mask on. He has been on record objecting to the popularity of drag and even introduced a bill that defines venues that serve alcohol and host drag shows as sexually oriented businesses, which I think is just absurd. He retweeted the picture of him that surfaced of him in drag, saying, "Y'all really going crazy over me wearing a dress as a joke back in school for theater project. Yep, that's not a sexually explicit drag show. Y'all were just So I'm like,
come on."
Yeah.
It's just like the modern equivalent of like the dudes in the 90s who were like, "Yeah, dude, like when I was a kid, everyone's friends were giving each other hand jobs. We all did it. Just like shut the fuck up and don't be weird about it. I can hate the gays now." And it's like it's just the same fucking point. It's like, no, come on, dude.
Yeah. So for his outfit, I gave it a 2 out of 10. He only had a mask and a dress. Not that much work went into this costume. Also, his response, 2 double thumbs down. Drag shows aren't explicitly sexual, so he sucks.
But owning a sexually oriented business is a very cool like title. What was it? What was it called?
Sexually oriented businesses. Yep.
Fuck yeah, that's up there with criminal mischief on things I want to be able to put on my resume but can't.
Oh man, I didn't put the last one up. Okay, but I feel like you guys would have seen it before. So the last Republican I have here for you is Rudy Giuliani.
What?
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Yep. He dressed in drag for a skit during an event put on by media in 2000 to poke fun at the NYC mayor and other local political figures. The skit shows Trump pretending to flirt with Giuliani. Giuliani sprayed perfume on his neck, and then Trump went in for a whiff and pushed his face in between Giuliani's fake boobs.
Holy shit. So I just want to go back in time to the first person to ever see that interview and be like, so this is going to summarize the next 25 years.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my God.
Just be ready for this to be everything forever now.
It's just so awful. I give this one a 1 out of 10. Honestly, I hate this man so much. He's an old, decrepit gremlin who needs to go die next to Mitch McConnell. No notes. That's it. That's all I have to say about really.
I think you're giving gremlins a bad name. Like
that's fair.
They've done so much to lighten up the world. I mean, think of where we would be as a society if we did not have Gremlins 2, the new batch. We wouldn't have Smart Gremlin, voiced by what's his name? Tony Scott? Tony Randall.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Gremlin. We wouldn't have Spider Gremlin. Please don't tie Rudy Giuliani to my beloved gremlin.
All right, he's not a gremlin, but he still needs to go die next to Mitch
Yes,
McConnell.
Agreed. Yeah, Goblin.
Oh God,
I'll be all right with
an
Goblin.
incredible National Review cover if you look up Rudy Giuliani drag, where it says, will it play in Peoria? And it's talking about Rudy Giuliani's inability to win the presidency because he did drag one time. Which is
God.
The funniest article you can write if you were a time traveler from the future.
Good stuff. I mean, there are probably so many more that exist out there, like evidence of Republicans doing drag in their past, but I wasn't able to find more. So yeah, clearly Republicans think that when they did drag in high school or in their youth, it was just good-natured fun. But when other people do it, it's dangerous. They're groomers, overly sexual, and child predators. It also doesn't help that Republicans often conflate the nightclub drag shows with family-friendly drag brunch events or drag story hours, which just helps fuel misinformation. So yeah, that is
holy shit. As part
2.
of this article, there's a anecdote about George Bush encountering a transgender person at the White House.
Ooh.
Who was a member of his Yale class, and Bush was told by the person, quote, "You might remember me as Peter when we left Yale." George Bush evidently didn't pause for a moment, shook the person's hand, and says, "And now you've come to the White House as yourself."
Which is a senior or junior?
What? This is junior, I think.
Okay.
Which is wild.
I really just think of the different world we would have had if Shrub had just stayed with being a baseball guy.
He'd have been a phenomenal baseball owner.
Yeah. The world would be a way different place. The Rangers would still be terrible.
Just like, can you imagine any conservative just like shaking a transgender person's hand and being like, "Oh, cool. Now."
That's the thing, right? Like, how you there's always the question you have to ask when these guys start parading around this is like, how much theater is going on here? Like, who are the true ghouls and who are the ones who are doing it for the power? Both are equally bad, you know, but like Junior doing that strikes me as like kind of the same way that like you have, you know, Maddow was at one point talking about how like actually nice Tucker Carlson is.
Yeah, fuck Rachel Maddow for that.
Well, yeah, no, but what I'm saying is, you know, there's the on-air personality of Tucker Carlson, which is not.
Oh, did you just think about? Sorry, keep going.
I don't know. There's not much more point I can make there. I think that's.
Or did you listen to the most recent Behind the Bastards episodes?
Yeah.
Yep.
The Dominion suit is incredible.
But this is, I was listening to, so going back to Henry Rollins, he did this podcast for a little bit, and he was talking about, I don't know if he still is, but he was at one point, like, on really friendly terms with Captain Kirk. William Shatner. William Shatner. And Shatner invited him over for like a Super Bowl party or something. And he invited like Rush Limbaugh as well. And Henry Rollins is like, I can't be in the same room as that guy. I'll kill him. And Shatner's like, no, you got to put that aside. He's a nice man outside of the radio. And Rollins was just baffled, like all of us are. But it just the grasping for power and money, it always leads to fucking evil.
I don't understand how people can separate like how they feel with like the just like emphasis and the hatred and like everything that they put on like during their on-screen or on-air personalities and like the information that they're pushing to people, how they can separate what they're spreading from what they actually are like off screen or offline. Like that, to me, they have to be the most broken people inside. I don't understand how they function, honestly.
I also don't understand having enough tact to do that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just unable to shut the fuck up for long enough to like keep a minimum wage job that I'm at a few hours a day. If, like, I couldn't do it on a national level. I just like
Every
can't
day
be quiet.
too. Yeah,
So,
every single fucking day.
fucking wild.
Ugh.
Don't know.
There's not enough
Ugh.
money in the world.
No, there need to be like in-depth studies done of those people.
Yeah.
Psychopathy.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So yeah.
There was a thing that popped up a couple days ago about I think you might have talked about it. If you did, I'm sorry. About like Florida DeSantis revoking the liquor license for a hotel.
No, I
Like
didn't.
a major hotel chain thing because of a drag show that they hosted.
Wow.
And there was some idiot in the Reddit comments being like, oh, well, now they're going to pay attention because it's affecting the bottom line. It's like, no, they're not.
No.
They're going to do whatever makes them money. Don't be a schmuck. You're being a schmuck, Reddit.
I think that's where like Ron DeSantis really misses the point, is like he actually believes in the culture war bullshit. Like no successful Nazi is a true believer.
Yeah.
Like it's a power grab. You're trying to make money. Like that's what it's about. And like the fact that he took away Disney's private kingdom is just like a sign that he cannot be successful.
I laugh about that every time it pops into my head. Like
the fact that Disney owned a part of Florida and the
like he has revoked their fief.
Yeah.
He did the modern equivalent of like coming in and cutting the Duke's head off and putting a new guy in charge, except Disney was the only person who still had a duchy in all of America.
Yeah, there's this scene in The Last Duel where Matt Damon's character is supposed to get a little slice of a piece of land because he's marrying this guy's wife or daughter, and it gets given to his friend, which sparks off all of this bullshit. But yeah, that's what it is. Like
yeah.
You wanted to be a baron, and you
It's like fucking fascism is propped up by the capital holding class, and you just gotta
so
shut
weird.
the fuck up, Ron. Idiot.
There's so many fucked up things happening in Florida. We could just do a whole episode on Florida, honestly.
A state that should never have been.
Yeah, I say this as someone who was born there. Chisel it into the ocean.
Just detach and go.
Yeah.
Also, maybe just include like the top or the bottom of Georgia. Also, like the Florida Georgia line area. Just include that.
And
And while we're at it, the band one, they can also get chiseled off into the ocean.
Shark and I racing to make the same joke. Oh, that's not good. There's a helicopter circling around my neighborhood.
They
Oh,
found
that's
you.
nice.
That's never a good sign.
Yeah,
Ooh.
it's not the spy
They
film.
found me.
So we have arrived at part 3. Drag as a force for good. So as I did most of my notes last week, like I said, since then, there have been even more anti-drag and anti-trans bills that have been proposed and passed in states like Kentucky, Texas, Tennessee, and so many others. But despite feeling like the earth has been taken over by bigots, there are still people out there fighting the good fight, reporting on this and using their voices and platforms to voice their opposition and condemn all of this hatred. On March 8th, RuPaul responded to the wave of anti-drag and anti-trans bills, saying that the bills were a classic distraction technique, distracting away from real issues that the lawmakers were voted into office to focus on, like jobs, healthcare, kid safety at school, for example. Like, come on. He called drag queens the Marines of the queer movement and urged everyone to make sure that they're registered to vote and make sure that they do vote in the upcoming election cycle, which, yeah, we've all heard before. Like, go vote. But, like, honestly.
Sorry, RuPaul. Marines are the Marines of the queer movement. A lot of gays in that branch of the military.
No, bro, it's totally straight.
Long nights in the rural Afghani wilderness. We just cuddle to keep warm, and my friend has bad dreams.
Former queens from RuPaul's Drag Race, such as Bob the Drag Queen, Kim Chi, Kim Petras, Carrie Colby, and more, have all made public statements. Elliot Page made an Instagram post urging their followers to follow ACLU reporter Chase Strangio, I don't know how to say his last name, who is also raising alarm bells and following the legislation closely. Other celebrities like LeBron James, Jamie Lee Curtis, Pedro Pascal, Jon Stewart, Melissa McCarthy, Shania Twain, and George Lopez have all expressed their pro-drag, pro-trans sentiments and anger towards the Republican lawmakers proposing these bills. And so now I'll end with this Instagram post from October 6th, 2022 from Lil Miss Hot Mess standing up to Marco Rubio. And I hope that I will be able to play this.
Quite literally, the only good thing about modernity besides penicillin is that people like Lil Miss Hot Mess can force congressmen to interact with them via the internet. Every time I see like someone on Twitter who's like "cum guzzler 69" subtweeting a congressman and having them respond, it's like, oh fuck yeah, thank you. This is the one good thing about present life.
Yeah, so that's all I got for today. Drag is an art form and a way for people to express themselves, and if you don't like it, then that's fine, but you don't have the right to take it away from the rest of us. So if you want to support drag queens and the LGBTQ plus community, please go support your local queens at a drag show. Consider donating to your local Drag Story Hour chapter. Make your voice heard that this type of exclusionary harassment and violence and so many other words I can't think of right now is not acceptable, and we will not allow it. Thank you. That's all I got.
Yeah. And also, like, the more people who are at every drag show, the less likely it will be to suffer violence, and the lower the body count will be if it does, counterintuitively.
Yep, that's an important thing, is the people who show up to harass these events will book the fuck out if there are enough people who show up to defend it.
I just saw a video this morning of a guy who was trolling anti-trans. No, it was at actually a drag show. There were protesters outside protesting the drag show, and there was this guy. Wait, maybe it wasn't drag show. I don't know. But this guy was in the crowd with them, but trolling them with a loudspeaker, just yelling, "We hate women. We hate women." Like, I don't trust them to make decisions, and, you know, blah, 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 just like clearly making fun of them. And this guy turns around, he's like, "You're not in our group. You need to leave," blah, 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 and like touching him. And he's like, "No, I totally agree with you guys. Like, we hate women. We don't trust them to make decisions. So we should." And it was just so funny. I'm like, we need more people like that.
Yeah. If you haven't seen the "We Deep the whole boot" guy, that's another great one in that genre. He just goes to Black the Blue rallies with the sign that says "We Deep the whole boot" and like tries to interact with the people who do Black the Blue shit. And it's fucking incredible.
There's a friend and I back in the Floyd protests were trying to talk ourselves into doing a black metal for Black Lives Matter thing. Just going up in corpse paint and like blaring Panopticon.
Yeah.
But yeah, we never did that. That would have been fun. And I think that would have done a very effective job of freaking out a lot of the Back the Blue guys.
Yeah. Oh, dang. Yeah, fucking.
Yeah.
God damn it.
So you're welcome for this palate cleanser, guys.
I need a comedy to
I
watch
need a-
after this.
I need a palate cleanser.
I think I might have to throw on John Wick. That's not a comedy.
I don't think you know how genres work.
I just said it's not a comedy, but yeah, the Lance Reddick died.
Oh,
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
man. Also, just as like a thing to throw out there, just like randomly, Congress people live somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not suggesting anything should happen, but they live
No.
places.
That is a fascinating fact.
Yeah.
They do live places.
And
They
need to
also
come
have
and go from those
offices.
places. Yeah.
And they want to take everything from people.
Yeah.
Just think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Just stating neutral facts.
Yep, just non-legally actionable facts.
Yes.
Just-
Everyone should go just watch John Waters interviews too. He's a very cool dude.
yeah. And find a trans person in history to become slowly obsessed with and learn every fact about their life.
Yeah. Go listen to cool people who did cool things.
Yeah,
You can learn
Margaret
about
Killjoy
several-
is a
Yeah.
great trans person to become obsessed with.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She's a very
Fantastic
good
musician.
writer, great
Yeah.
musician. Yep.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
She's a
was
very
a
cute dog.
blacksmith. That's very cool.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is really cool. I
Yeah,
want to do that.
I know, right?
Rachel's face got super serious right now.
Yeah. How do I get into? Yeah.
I
Yeah,
got a
right.
friend who does that out in Maryland. I could
Oh, I thought you were gonna say here. I'm like, Aaron,
no,
you need
but
to
I mean I
make an
can
introduction right now.
see if he's got like intro stuff that he could point you into. But I mean you do have a house, so you have property. You could do things cool.
This is when
on, so-
Rachel builds her like Great Leap Forward yard furnace to smelt iron like a Chinese communist peasant. Making I-beams for skyscrapers in the
This is
back.
another instance of Aaron tries to imagine things that he doesn't know anything about. Yeah, I mean, you could probably just set up a blacksmithing thing in your basement, right? That's
Aaron reads sci-fi, not fantasy, listener.
yeah. I mean, you just get the replicator, and right?
From what I've seen in the
Isn't that how
movies,
that works?
from what I've seen in the movies, you just look hot while holding a hammer most of the
Yeah.
time, and that's most of blacksmithing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Shout
I think
out
that's mainly
to
it.
Orlando Bloom in the first Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, such a good
I
movie.
haven't.
It's really good, Aaron. It's not
Yeah.
on the Criterion collection, but it's very good. Underrated. I'll go so far as to say it's the best movie based on a theme park ride.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of truth in that statement. Didn't they do they made another one, Wayne Johnson a few years ago. Not like Pirates, but it was based on a movie. It was like Jungle Adventure or something like that.
No.
It was on
Wait, back up. Did you say Wayne Johnson
Dwayne
instead of
The
Dwayne?
Rock. Yeah.
Instead of The
'cause-
Rock? Yeah, I was like, for a second, I'm like,
Yeah.
why do I know that name? Oh,
Yeah.
it's The fucking Rock. Okay,
Look,
Aaron.
It's
Who
a
will now-
combination of me just hungover. Anyway,
The Rock will also now be known as worst Dave Bautista for everybody.
yes,
Oh
I
yeah, I
agree.
support that.
Yeah. But that movie was on repeat at my brother's house the last time I visited, and oh my god,
Hmm.
kids have horrible taste.
It's so horrible.
Just start sending them movies every
I
month.
sat down with that 9-year-old and I was like, come here, kid, you gotta fucking watch Eyes Without a Face. And he left in the first 10 minutes.
Here, we're gonna watch you like action movies. Let's watch Come and See.
Yeah, holy shit. Oh, in case you're wondering, listener, Come and See is maybe the hardest movie to watch.
Yeah.
I might confidently say that.
Yeah.
It's
Kind
a
of sounds like a porno.
slow and it does kind of.
Yeah, well, yeah, but it's not.
It is a slow and ponderous thriller about how Nazism makes horror stories out of us all,
Yep.
Oh.
where pretty much everyone is an irredeemable bastard who kills everyone there.
It's yep. Yep.
Just imagining you showing an 11-year-old just that footage of a train that was one of the first movies. Like, this is the fucking
This is cinema.
yeah. I know it's not your Top Gun Mavericks, but here's a
You want to
photo
watch
of
a
a horse-drawn
superhero
carriage.
movie? I'll show you Dark Man. Let's watch Dark Man.
You've seen
It's got your
Metropolis.
Liam Neeson's.
Liam's Neeson.
Liam's Neeson. Yeah, Metropolis. I don't want Uncle Aaron to come visit anymore. He made me watch the weird movie in German. Many weird movies in German. Get a call from my brother. What have you been watching? We just watched Aguirre, the Wrath of God.
Oh, God. Yeah. Well, is that what we got?
That's all we got.
Congressmen live places.